Picture this. You walk outside on what looks like a perfectly normal spring morning. The sun is out, the sky is mostly clear, and you have absolutely no reason to think the next few hours are going to change everything. Then, within 15 minutes, the sky turns pitch black, and then the ice starts falling. Not rain, not sleet. Baseball-sized chunks of ice slamming into your car, your roof, your windows, and everything you own with a force that sounds like the world is coming apart around you. That is exactly what happened to the people of Springfield, Missouri, on the morning of Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. And what they experienced that day was not just a bad hailstorm, it was the worst hailstorm in the recorded history of their city. Springfield, Missouri, sits in the heart of the Ozarks, a region that sees its fair share of severe spring weather every year. Residents here know thunderstorms, they know hail. But what happened on April 28th was in a completely different category from anything the city had experienced in living memory. By the time the storm finished its work, thousands of cars had been destroyed. A major airport had been turned into a field of shattered glass. A beloved zoo animal was dead. A retail store had ice falling through its roof onto the people inside. And city utility workers were dealing with a type of infrastructure damage they had genuinely never seen before in their careers. This was not a close call. This was a direct hit, and Springfield is still trying to fully understand the scale of what just happened to it. To understand why this storm was so extraordinary, you need to know a little bit about how hail works and why the size of a hailstone matters so much. Hail forms inside powerful thunderstorm systems when water droplets are lifted by strong updrafts into regions of the atmosphere where temperatures are well below freezing. As those droplets freeze and fall, they can be caught by updrafts again and carried back upward, where another layer of ice accumulates around them. This process repeats itself over and over, with each cycle adding another shell of ice to the growing stone. The stronger and more intense the storm's updraft, the longer that process continues, and the larger the hailstone becomes before it finally falls to the ground. Golf ball-sized hail, which is roughly 1.75 inches in diameter, is already considered large enough to cause serious damage. Baseball-sized hail, at around 2.75 inches, is classified as significant and capable of punching through rooftops and windshields. And the largest hailstone officially measured in Springfield on April 28, 2026, came in at a staggering 4.75 inches in diameter. To give you a sense of scale, that is roughly the size of a CD or DVD. That is not hail. That is a chunk of ice the size of a small weapon falling from the sky at terminal velocity. And Greene County, which encompasses Springfield, had never recorded a single hailstone of 4 inches or larger in its entire history before that Tuesday morning. The storm arrived in 2 punishing waves. The first round swept into Springfield around 11 in the morning. The transformation it caused was almost instantaneous. One woman who was staying at a campground on the northwest side of the city described watching the sky go from completely sunny to pitch black in roughly 15 minutes. She had been trying to put a thundercoat on her dog when the hail started hammering everything around her. Within seconds, softball-sized hailstones were coming down hard enough to shatter the skylight on her RV. All she could do was get inside and wait it out. That experience was repeated across the entire northwest side of Springfield almost simultaneously. Before emergency crews had even begun to assess the damage from the first wave, a second round of storms rolled through around 1 in the afternoon, piling destruction on top of destruction in areas that had not even had a chance to catch their breath. The human response was immediate and frantic. At Missouri State University, an emergency alert went out at 11:45 in the morning, warning of baseball-sized hail and instructing everyone to take shelter in a sturdy building away from windows. The alert specifically warned that people and animals outdoors would be severely injured. Students and faculty flooded toward the campus parking garages in a desperate scramble to get their vehicles under cover before the ice arrived. Some made it, many did not. Across the city, the same scene was playing out in parking lots, driveways, and on highways, with drivers pulling under overpasses, flooding into covered structures, and in some cases simply accepting that there was nothing they could do to protect their cars from what was coming. The damage to vehicles across Springfield was staggering in its scale, and the stories coming from every corner of the city painted a picture that felt more like a war zone than a spring storm. Drivers caught out on the road when the hail arrived had almost no options. Pulling over meant watching their vehicles take direct strikes from ice the size of baseballs. Even people who managed to find cover under bridges or inside parking garages were finding that the margin between safety and total loss was razor thin. But perhaps no single location captured the full extent of the destruction more clearly than Springfield-Branson National Airport. When the first wave of hail struck at around 11:30 in the morning, there were approximately 1,100 vehicles sitting in the airport's parking lots with no cover and nowhere to go. Airport officials later estimated that 95% of those vehicles sustained some form of damage. Roughly a quarter of them suffered what was described as severe impact damage, including shattered windshields, broken rear windows, and completely destroyed sunroofs. The airport released a statement on social media telling any passenger with a vehicle in their lots to simply expect hail damage and to begin the process of contacting their insurance providers. The nearby courtyard by Marriott Hotel on Division Street, located close to the Interstate 44 interchange, reported similar widespread damage to vehicles in its parking area. The infrastructure damage extended far beyond the parking lots. Springfield city utilities recorded more than 10,000 power outages across the city within hours of the first storm hitting. By midday, the official count had reached 10,111 electric outages, with the vast majority concentrated along the northern side of the city near the Interstate 44 corridor, directly in the path of the most intense hail activity. Utility crews worked aggressively throughout the afternoon, and power was restored to most affected customers by around 4 in the evening. But the electrical outages were not the most unusual thing that utility workers encountered that day. Officials also began receiving calls about hail damage to gas meters, something that the field services manager for gas and water metering at Springfield City Utilities described as a phenomenon he had never encountered before during his career. He urged residents throughout the affected areas to inspect their gas meters carefully and to leave the area immediately and call 911 if they detected even the faintest smell of gas, rather than attempting any kind of inspection or repair on their own. On the northwest side of Springfield, some of the most dramatic and visible damage unfolded at a Walmart supercenter on North Kansas Expressway. The hail struck with enough force to punch directly through 24 of the store's skylights, sending large chunks of ice raining down inside the building onto shoppers and employees who had no warning of what was coming from above. The store was evacuated immediately and closed for the remainder of the day. A Starbucks adjacent to the same Walmart also shut down. Store management personnel at the location told local media that the hail damage they witnessed was unlike anything they had encountered before during their time at that store. And they specifically noted that a small tornado which had struck the same general area 2 years earlier had not caused anywhere near the same level of destruction. Across the city, residents who had been through severe weather before were struggling to find comparisons that came close to what April 28th had delivered. Springfield resident Lisa Voss described the experience of hearing massive hailstones strike her home for roughly 2 minutes straight. She said she had seen hail close to golf ball size before, but nothing remotely like what came down that morning. The force of the impacts against the walls of her house was so powerful that she initially thought pictures were falling off the walls inside her home before she realized the sound and vibration were coming from outside. Her account was representative of what residents across the northwest side of the city experienced during those terrifying minutes. One of the most heartbreaking chapters of the entire event unfolded at Dickerson Park Zoo, which sits on the north side of Springfield and was directly in the path of the storm's most violent section. When the hail struck at around 11 in the morning, it damaged roofs across the zoo's property, shattered skylights on multiple structures, and left the grounds covered in ice. In the chaos of the storm, a 21-year-old emu named Adam died as a result of his injuries. Adam was a large, flightless bird that had been a resident of the zoo for years and was well known to regular visitors and zoo staff alike. A male rhea, another large, flightless bird similar in appearance to a small ostrich, was also injured during the storm and was placed under immediate veterinary care. Zoo spokeswoman Joey Powell confirmed that no other animals sustained injuries and that all staff members and guests who were present during the storm came through safely. The zoo announced it would remain closed through Wednesday to allow crews to complete safety assessments and begin addressing the extensive damage to the grounds and structures. Auto body shops across the Springfield area were overwhelmed almost immediately following the storm, fielding thousands of calls from residents dealing with everything from minor surface dents to vehicles so catastrophically damaged that they would need to be written off as complete total losses by insurance companies. Repair facilities that would normally schedule work weeks out were suddenly buried under a backlog that no one in the local industry had ever seen arrive in a single afternoon. The demand for windshield replacements alone was so high that suppliers were struggling to keep up. Rental car companies in the area reported their entire fleets being booked out almost instantly as residents with destroyed vehicles tried to find any way to keep moving while their cars sat waiting for repair appointments. The ripple effects of a single 2-minute hailstorm were spreading outward across the local economy in ways that would take a long time to fully calculate. Meteorologists and weather historians put the April 28th storm into a historical context that made the full scale of what happened even clearer and more sobering. While hail is a relatively common feature of spring severe weather in the Ozarks region, hailstones larger than 3 inches in diameter are considered genuinely rare for Greene County. Prior to April 28th, the county had recorded hail of 3 inches or larger on just 6 occasions in its entire documented weather history, going all the way back to 1950. 4-inch hail had never been recorded in Greene County at any point before that day. The largest hailstone officially measured from the April the 28th storm came in at a remarkable 4.75 inches in diameter, instantly making it the largest hail ever recorded in both Springfield and Greene County without any close competition. For additional context, weather records showed that the most expensive hailstorm in Greene County prior to April 28th had caused $4 million in damage during a storm that struck Republic, Missouri in April 2023. The most expensive hailstorm in the broader Ozarks region had been a May 2024 event in Marshfield that caused $12.5 million in losses. The most expensive hailstorm in Missouri history overall occurred on April 10, 2001, when baseball-sized hail struck St. Louis and caused more than $1 billion in damage. Weather analysts examining the April 28, 2026 event noted that given the magnitude, timing, geographic coverage, and the sheer number of vehicles and structures impacted across Springfield, this storm would almost certainly claim the title of the most expensive hailstorm in Springfield's recorded history by a significant margin, with damage estimates expected to easily surpass the previous local record and potentially reach figures that would shock even experienced severe weather professionals. What happened in Springfield on April 28th is a reminder that severe weather does not always arrive in the form most people picture when they think about natural disasters. It does not always mean tornadoes touching down or rivers flooding over their banks. Sometimes it comes from directly above, completely silent until it is not, in the form of ice the size of a baseball or larger, falling with enough force to punch through commercial rooftops, shatter car windshields across an entire city block simultaneously, and kill a large animal in an open zoo enclosure. It arrives without the kind of slow, visible buildup that gives people time to prepare and protect themselves. The sky turns dark in 15 minutes, the ice falls for 2 minutes, and when it is finally over, a city is left standing in silence, surrounded by broken glass and crushed metal, trying to understand how something that lasted less time than most people spend making a cup of coffee managed to cause damage on a historic scale. Springfield will recover. The cars will be repaired or replaced. The roofs will be fixed. The businesses will reopen. But April 28th, 2026 is now permanently part of this city's story, recorded in the weather history books as the day the largest hailstorm ever measured in Greene County arrived without mercy and reminded everyone that in the Ozarks, spring is never really safe.